Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook. Hello and welcome to the most recent Fleet Geeks podcast. Today, which I'm recording now, which is simply called When to Quit. And I thought this would be a bit of fun, actually. I was thinking about it recently and I was gonna call this podcast Start with the End in Mind, but I thought that was a little bit unsure. So I'm gonna make a podcast about when to quit. So it comes with a health warning. I suggest that there's a really good book about quitting called The Dip by Seth Godin, which is a really good book. And some of the ideas that I've been stolen with pride from that. But essentially, I've shaped some of these myself from reading this book a long time ago. So I've actually had to refresh myself a little bit to prep for the podcast. But one of the things that, having read that, made me realize, particularly with running a consultancy and training business, is you start with the end in mind. So, and what I mean by that, and it gets asked all the time on the transport manager groups, is, for example, when do I quit my operator, right? When do I quit? And it gets asked all the time. So one of the things that I say is prepare in advance, right? Decide what are the health factors, what are the hygiene factors that when they're not present anymore, it's quit time. See you later. I'm not going to be here anymore to see the train crash. And because I think that's a really important thing to do. So I'm gonna start this with a very simple caveat of start with the end in mind. Know when the quit's going to happen. Know when to stop, right? And if you're a consultant, make sure that you've got terms and conditions in place which outline when you're going to quit, right? And outline when you're going to leave, and outline the notice period that needs to be paid if there's a notice period. Outline it all in advance. Get it agreed up front, right? Because the worst time to try negotiating this stuff is at the end. Because at the end, we've all got different motivations, we've all got different issues, and it's going to be much harder to negotiate. So let's get negotiating up front before, when someone comes to you and offers you a job or offers you a contract or offers you something, that's the time that you negotiate what the exit's going to look like, right? Half the reason football managers are quite happy to get sacked is because they know that their life cycle is going to be pretty short, potentially, and they've got nice fat payouts at the other end. Okay, so they either have a job or they get paid, right? And there's no reason why that could not be for your process as well, particularly if you're an acclaimed professional, or somebody that has got a lot of profile about them, or that you've got a lot of skills about you, right? Make sure that these things are right. And this might not work so well in the context of getting paid and being an employee, for example, but at the same time, thinking about these things helps you know when the time is to leave, when to quit. Because one of the things that stands in the thing is to understand is that we don't have a lot of time, right? We're all going to die. And that's probably pretty morbid. And sorry if I've upset some people, but it's kind of true, right? We're all going to die. So we've all got a finite amount of time, right? And the difference between really successful people and really unsuccessful people is actually successful people know when to quit. They know when it's not right. And there's all this old stuff around quitters never win and winners never quit, and all this programming about, people don't like quitters and just keep going all the time and those kinds of things. So and resilience and that sort of stuff. And I know I talk about resilience and that's being really important, but sometimes we've just got to know that these are our standards and these are expectations, and when it's not being met, we quit. That's it. See you later. It's about knowing when to walk away, when to stick and when to walk away. And there's a real value in knowing when the right time for you is to quit, without you having to go on Facebook and ask other people. When you know that the writing's on the wall, time to go, move on, and get going where you're going even quicker is obviously really important. So, really important. But so I think that the important thing about this is maybe not when to quit. It's about when to quit and when to stick. Okay. And I can't answer that for you. And this podcast won't answer that for you. Only you can. But my suggestion is don't wait until you're emotionally involved. Don't wait until the last minute. Don't wait until you're really stuck in the thick of it and it really matters. Do it when it's objective. Do it at the front end. Decide when you're going to quit at the front. What's going to make me leave this? A really good example that got me thinking about this was I was chatting to a coaching client recently, and there's some stuff going on, and it's really exciting when new exciting things are happening. And there was this talk about two people moving in together and those kinds of things. And I go, oh, okay, how's that going to work? And we're sort of exploring that. And I was like, what happens when it goes wrong? And the person just looked at me and was like, what do you mean? And the issue we've got is when we're excited about new stuff, we don't want to think about it failing, right? But I've got some facts for you. Most marriages end in divorce. Most people end up separating when they get into relationships. I know this sounds really cynical, but a lot of stuff fails, okay? And the thing is we're eternal optimists. So I guess this podcast is to make you think, to be a little bit more cynical.
Hello, it's Shani from Flagship Partners. We are really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. If you need expert advice or training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We are really excited to announce the launch of our Transport Manager Academy. With expert development for fleet leaders, we offer fully accredited initial Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher, and operator license awareness training, as well as mentoring, support, and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is to develop elite fleet professionals.
Don't be too cynical, obviously, because I think it's important that we have that. I think that it's important that we have this optimism. And I'm an optimist too. I'm not a pessimist, but I think that the importance is to be a realist as well as an optimist. So be optimistic, but be real about it at the same time. So you know when to quit the wrong stuff, when you're going to stick with the right stuff, and having the guts to do one or the other. Okay, because sometimes we just end up in no man's land where we're stuck with stuff that we don't really like. So I think there's real importance in starting to think about those things head on. Okay, so there's three things to think about when it comes to quitting. Okay, the first is the cul-de-sac. So the cul-de-sac is, for example, you're stuck in work and you work and work and work, and nothing really changes, and you're in a dead end, right? You're hoping for it to change, but it's almost like what Einstein said: if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we've always got. Okay, and at some point, we just need to look in the mirror and go, it's time to quit. Okay, so be careful of the cul-de-sac when you're literally just stuck in it. You're working and working, and nothing's changing. Nothing's improving. You're trying to get other people to buy into stuff. This might be from a compliance point of view, or it might be from any point of view. For example, it might be trying to get a pay rise. It might be whatever it is that you want, for example. It's just not going to happen. And you need to just go, this isn't going to happen. So I'm going to quit, right? Or I'm going to find something else first and then quit. Maybe is the right thing to do, particularly if you have bills to pay and stuff. But anyway, the next one is the cliff. Be careful of the cliff, right? Because the cliff looks like something promising, okay? Going along, oh, this looks okay, this looks okay. But then everything drops off suddenly and rapidly, and it catches you by surprise. And you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do, right? Be careful of the cliff. When you fall off the cliff, quit, right? Stop falling, just quit. There's all sorts of dodgy stuff that could be happening in the background that's caused the cliff to occur that you don't know about. So I often see people do this on social media. They'll ask about all this catastrophic stuff's going wrong, and should I quit? And it's like, well, how much more evidence do you need before you're going to quit? Because that's a cliff you're falling off, mate. So so cliffs and cul-de-sacs, they lead to failure, and you need to quit soon. Not soon, right now. You need to go. The biggest key to unlocking success is being able to quit quickly enough. But one of the things to be careful of is knowing when the right time is to stick. And that's to understand that the thing is, right? And this is like when you start a business, when you start a consultancy, when you start a training company, right? And you might be listening to this, having started a business, right? And thinking you're in a cul-de-sac or thinking that you're on a cliff. And the thing is sometimes, and this is why the book's called The Dip, right? Because sometimes you start a journey, right? And it's all exciting, it's all new, and it's all it's all like, exciting, right? You've got loads of energy because it's something new and exciting. The challenge is it's a long slog and it's going to take some time. And the dip is a bit like having the resilience to know you are on the right track. It is going to get better and you're going to come up the other side. Okay. And that's when you know when to stick. So it sounds like a bit of a paradox because I talk about the cul-de-sac, I talk about the cliff, and then I'm talking about the dip. The dip's when you stay. If it's really going to get better, and that is the thing to think about in advance, because what's this going to look like as it moves forward? Because the challenge you've got is if you're in the dip, it can get quite emotional and it can get quite challenging and you can get a bit frustrated. Okay. But actually you might be on the right path and you've just got to keep going. There's this, there's all these, I've seen all these, gifts before of like people digging for gold, and they're digging and digging and digging, and they're only so far away from the gold or the oil or whatever it might be. And then they give up and go home. Okay. And it was the wrong thing to do because they were just in the dip. They'd been digging and digging and they're not got any results just yet, but they were just about to get the results. So really tricky thing. And that's why I can't answer the question for you of when to quit. But certainly something for you to think about is, how long am I going to commit to this project? How long am I going to commit to this pathway that I'm following before I just give up and move on? So I think it's really important to think about that in advance. I hope this podcast has been useful and thoughtful. I'm interested in your thoughts. How do you know when to quit? What are the things that you have? And maybe you create a list of stuff. And if somebody says this to me, if somebody does that, these are the warning signs. If, in the terms of a transport manager role, I don't know, the MOT pass rate hits 50%, I'm going to quit, right? Or the boss doesn't agree to this, or vehicle misses service, or driver takes his card out, or whatever it may be. You need to decide what that's going to be, or how many times you're going to accept that happening before you do quit. I've just realised it looks like I've got a dressing gown on. I haven't, I promise. It is a cardigan. Anyway, I hope it's been helpful. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know when is it time for you to quit, and hopefully you're not thinking, when's Pete going to quit? Because if you're thinking that, why are you listening to the podcast, right? Because I'm not going to quit, because this is just the journey, right? And I'm enjoying it. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.